rest of the debt bump.
Right, but I'm just saying to be able to keep it in there to use over the next few years.
I mean, it's one of the places you can go if you have an issue. If we didn't have free cash, the burned up highway truck
Yeah.
could have come out of stabilization,
Yeah.
but we have free cash. So,
So, yeah, I don't feel strongly about keeping any extra free cash or moving it to stabilization.
Why not put it in capital?
Oh, I was talking about capital stabilization. I know we're on general stabilization, but I was just talking about when we were talking about the dollar amounts for these. Sorry.
you know,
I was
it's,
more talking philosophically than the specific one.
in some sense, it's the sum of general and capital that matters
Right.
as far
We
as your
could just
savings
vote these and
accounts.
then when we deal with the free cash discussion.
Yeah, well, we also have OPEB.
Right.
What do you like for, general? Somebody make a motion to positive action on the 25,000?
Who's hard?
I think it might be you.
Oh, really? Okay, a motion to approve $25,000 for the general stabilization fund for the FY19 school budget.
Second.
Okay, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Okay, capital stabilization, which is a smaller balance fund, it's like 350,000 right now, Catherine?
Yes. More than that, actually, but
Yeah.
we can do that.
Yeah, there's been interest.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, there's definitely been
Yeah,
interest.
it's like a 100,000.
Yeah. We've been carrying 100,000 in the model without the Masconomet capital, actually. I'm not worried about putting 100,000 of free cash.
Oh, no, I think the question is it 100 or do we do more since we have free cash?
Well,
No, no, I'm gonna
it,
push for a lot, no.
It's a 2/3 vote to get out too.
Yeah, just keep it free cash. All right.
yeah, and, you know, to the extent that we never use it, well, how much do you want to leave sitting in there?
Yeah, I just don't have a historical sense of.
What's in there now?
You're balancing a free cash
332
number.
as of January.
332?
At the end of January.
Yeah, in the past couple of years, we've put in 100,000
And
each
haven't
year.
taken anything out.
And we haven't taken anything out, this is a relatively new one.
What do we take them out for?
If you, like, again, the highway truck, that's a
Okay.
capital, you could pull it out for that if you didn't have free cash, or,
Or like when the bridge goes down or something?
yeah,
Okay.
So when you say it takes a 2/3 to take it out?
town
2/3
meeting.
Town meeting.
Yeah,
Takes 2/3.
yeah, if you wanna use stabilization, because you're pulling from your savings
Savings
account,
account,
you
yeah.
wanna be really sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike?
Okay, so, wait, look at this, look at it.
It's 100,
Well, yeah,
100,000.
motion for positive action to put $100,000 in the capital stabilization fund
Thinking all
in the town of Topsail FY19
Okay.
budget.
Second.
All in favor? Further
100,000
discussion?
stabilization.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Now Chade and his OPEB.
Yeah, so we talked a couple weeks ago, Karen, with you.
Yeah.
And I shared that, just to reiterate real quickly, that they've redone the gas fee standards for this, so it's hard to assess where we should be. And we're supposed to be meeting in a couple of weeks with our advisor on this. But ultimately, the reality is that we need to fund it more than we are. And I mean, I think we should be funding it at this point with where we're at, and this is my very limited expertise, which is very, very limited in this space, but at a $500,000 range. I don't
A
think,
year.
a year. I don't think we're there right now. I think that would be, with the year we're in right now, too much. And frankly, I think that that's more, that I wouldn't recommend that based on, I wouldn't ask you all to take my word for that. I would suggest that we need to talk with the advisors and get their perspective. But I think we do need to go up quite a bit from the 100,000. And if you can find it, 300 is what I really think we need to do this year.
So is this like a sudden problem? Because we would sort of.
No,
No.
no, this is the other half of the retirement problem everyone's having. This is the side no one's been paying attention to at all. And this is the bigger side, because health insurance is going up faster than everything else. So, but again, it's not a Topsfield problem, it's a United States of America problem.
And at some level, I mean, we started the OPEB fund so that we could start putting money aside to basically endow future post-employment benefits. Never thinking that we would have to solve the whole problem ourselves, but our liabilities.
It's over 16.
Oh, it's over 16 million, okay.
15 or 16,
What, and how much is in the fund?
a few 100,000.
200,000 versus $16 million liability.
Yeah, now remember, that's present value, you know.
Right, now,
How much is it up there?
No, it's
700.
700.
Yeah, yeah, right.
700,000.
It's been quite a few years in putting
So, okay, 16.
1.6.
Wow.
And water has their own.
And the problem is that numbers bounce up a little bit, because with the new accounting, we can't judge to last year, or to 2 years ago, because it's not our accounting, it's the standards, and the standards board changed, so we can't do it's an apples to orange comparison right now. And we need to, apples to oranges, we need to get another 2 years, or we need to talk to them about how could they take 2 years ago and run the new accounting regime against that and see, to give us a kind of more apples to apples. No, remember, that's 16, yeah, that's a present value, but that's over, the thing to remember is because you're talking about the length of time, you're talking about is 60 to 70 year payment.
When you say
stream.
present value, that means
Yeah.
in the out years, season
Yeah,
of the year.
yeah.
And we have
Mhm.
free cash sitting there. And to the extent that it's gonna earn interest if it sits in OPEB,
Right.
it's not crazy to put more in if we can.
And I think one of the things that Kelly had talked about when we talked last time about it, is a good point, is that this is something that is becoming on the credit rating firms' radar.
So,
And seeing a
one of the
serious
meetings,
commitment.
you were at, we talked about, there was general sympathy with making sure we put more than we have been. I think,
When we can.
when we get, but the question
We don't
is,
wanna go nuts.
correct.
So Chair, you the only guy thinking about this, or who else is thinking
No.
about this?
Within us,
Within Topsfield, yeah.
within Topsfield, there are a number of people. Kelly's been actively involved in this, and her team, Barbara and Catherine as well.
We're just kinda what's the
Eric's
consensus?
been asking a lot of questions on it too.
When it started, I think we all said, the state's gonna step in
Right.
and fix it. But the state's got as big a liability as we do,
Okay.
as all the towns put together do, so.
Yeah, this is,
What do you
Yeah.
guys think it should be?
the problem is it was 18 before, so
Well, the
and it's a
concept-
two accounting, I have that same.
The
Yeah,
concept
thank
is,
you.
The problem's not gonna be solved.
Right,
Yeah,
oh, that's
it's-
true.
it seems like
I'm sure it'll be a delay, kind of thing.
like, the philosophy is that we need to contribute at a rate in which we're treading water,
Yeah.
or slightly getting above water, as opposed to if we just keep putting in 100, then slowly your head's going underwater.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Well, I'm
we're
not- yeah.
paying.
But the shades of gray
as we
is,
go.
is 200 too little, is 500 too much,
Well, you
is
should,
300?
well, you should
It's
know
all-
that. What's the service accruals on do you have that information? What's the actuarial kind of
Yeah, if we
accruals
just tread water.
that are
The treading water.
Well,
Yeah, see,
Not
I
getting
don't
back
know what the
again.
actual dollar amount is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
contribute enough to meet the service cost.
And I think that's what
That's where I was,
Shay was targeting.
targeting, and that's where, I think to get to that, again, we need to talk with the advisor, and this was provided to us 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, it's in the February is when it was launched. provided, so.
We're gonna be getting more color.
We're gonna get a
by
lot
next-
more
yeah.
color, but the
Oh,
reality is that it is certainly well over 300,000 that we need to be putting in annually if we wanna get ahead of this problem.
But
But
at least
at
if we
least
put in
300.
300, we
It-
show intent.
We show intent, we are making a significant committed effort moving forward, you know, and with as we get some more understanding about what the effect is of the change, because the liability dropped by $3 million with the accounting prints change, thereabouts. And there may have been other things involved in it, but ultimately it was a $3 million drop in our present value. So, we need to understand this more. It's not as easy as, oh, we look,
No, we need a benefits funding strategy.
yeah.
Okay, so given that we have free cash available to apply, if you look at Mike's recap sheet, before we started tonight, we were 250,000 over the levy limit, more or less.
Right.
We added a little bit with some of our little guidelines things, but you take out the 148,000 for Masco, and you take out, we think the snow and ice deficit can be covered with turnbacks in FY18 transfers in special town meeting, then we're basically in balance and we still have free cash. It's not the sort of thing that you wanna spend on, ongoing operating budget costs, but putting it
I think putting
against a liability like this is.
Long-term liabilities.
But Shay, how do we get comfortable with 253, 350?
What's that?
Why three?
I think,
I think because I think it's supposed to, again.
You could make an argument for substantially more,
Yeah.
three times higher than the other number, whereas 250.
Yeah. I think it comes down to is that it's halfway between, to be perfectly honest, where my first gut is of where I think we ought to be and where we are. That's how I came to it.
Does two show enough intent for?
I don't think so. Because I don't think, it doesn't reflect us, personally, with us having the free cash, it doesn't reflect us saying, this is a big problem we need to address. That's just my perspective.
Well, at some point, there's gotta be a legislative fix, because no matter what we throw in there, it's not gonna be enough.
I think
Throw
you
six
probably.
in there.
You're just trying to make the problem not get worse.
Yeah, at 300,000, it's not getting that much worse. At 500,000, I think we're, that's, again, I'm hesitating saying these numbers because it's just kind of, my first pass at it, not an expert's pass at it, we need to meet with them. But I think 300 is halfway between where we are and where I think we should be, and it shows commitment.
What else would you do with the free cash if we weren't doing this?
well, I think some of it, we know there's a debt bump next year that we wanna
Meaning what, that would be?
take the edge off.
So we take the edge off, how, what's the
You
mechanism?
could take down,
Pay the-
pre-pay.
Use,
Okay.
or you use it to reduce the tax levy.
Okay.
I'm not, I mean,
Right,
that's
okay,
gonna
that's
be
two
a
ways.
detailed discussion.
Mhm.
You know, and if there's, potential overrides or things next year, having that sitting there in free cash can help smooth those.
We're gonna have to deal with the buses for Masco and elementary school next year, that's my
Right,
understanding.
if that gets momentum, then there's that start time.
Of course, that's a permanent
Yeah, that's
to the
perfect.
budget, so
So I
that's
think
not a
Because
good
that's
use
not-
of free
That's not free
cash.
cash.
Right.
No.
Free cash has to be the one time.
Free cash
Right, I don't think we're
is
gonna
good
get that.
for,
Stabilizations or
yeah,
liabilities
I
or
mean,
one time.
we always apply some free cash to reduce the tax levy. If you look historically, it would be, it's at a 1-ish% kind of level, 1.25%, so, you know, applying it at the $400,000 level is not crazy.
I think my feeling on that, just to share, is that this is a liability that our current citizens have incurred. And putting in the OPEB and putting in, reducing the levy, as much as I'd like to pay less taxes, is unfair on the future where they're going to pay, they're gonna absorb the liability if we don't fund
Yeah,
the
it's
current.
pay now or pay
Yeah.
later, the town's on the
Yeah.
hook.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Town's on the hook.
I mean, it's just fairly trying to pay our,
our
Part of it now.
contribution of it, yep.
Understood.
So, do you wanna make a motion for an amount, Shay?
I'd make a motion for OPEB, trust fund in the amount, for the, sorry, let me pull this, other post-employment benefits to see the town, recommend the town vote to transfer free cash and appropriate the sum of $300,000 to the other post-employment benefit liability trust fund.
I'll second that.
More discussion. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Subject to rewriting, we get to the free cash discussion and we will. rewrite.
Subject to, yeah, subject to.
Yeah, I
I
don't
think
think
that's,
Okay, so 26. We got,
We still have a couple citizens petitions that we need to address.
yeah, there's,
I wonder, you guys voted records, right?
yeah,
Can you tell me about that one? Sorry, you know,
the records management software or the big records digitizing thereof?
that was 22, right? No, 23 was the record software,
Yeah,
and that one was a no?
that's a no.
Okay. And what was the?
Whoa, no, 2030 is the comprehensive record management system, which is
No, we're talking.
Article 23 in the regular
Yeah.
check.
Yeah.
Comprehensive records management system, it's $45,000
Right.
to figure out what records we have and create
So it's just,
inventory and database of what we have. It's not to digitize anything at all.
so, just to ask on that, I'm sorry if I'm,
Yeah,
and I apologize again, I wasn't here last week. Why not just digitize everything instead? Because $45,000 ought to get us
It's
somebody
$150,000 to digitize everything we
and,
have.
and put it into
That's
some
just
sort of
to
system,
scan it.
right?
This, we're starting with the master plan, the system first,
Yeah.
and then we
The
can.
process.
The process, the system, the inventory, the analysis, the recommendations based on the state mandated document retention schedules, and some of the technical expertise to give us the best roadmap moving forward, particularly because we're trying to consolidate 3 separate sets of departmental files into one shared office space in the new town hall.
and there's some suspicion there's overlap and duplication.
Of the
Absolutely.
records.
Yeah.
right? But, yeah, and I guess I'm just, sorry, just thinking it through, the 145 was for the software and for the storing of all of that, as well as the digitization, so the software to manage it going forward, right?
Not in this proposal, we scaled it back to start with the roadmap first,
No,
because
no,
you
not
can
this, I'm sorry.
add software
Yeah.
as phase
So
2. if
the,
we're-
sorry, the 45,000, I understand, that's create your process and
Right.
controls around it. Separate that you had the other one, which was that the special, was to do the software to be able to digitize it and store it and access it.
There was gonna be software, and then there was going to be scanning costs.
Yeah,
We
to
scaled that
digitize.
back, and we're treating that as a separate standalone project, because we need a clearer roadmap for how to move forward, and we don't wanna put the cart before the horse. And because we don't have an IT director to sort of lead the way, I thought that this was more tempered and allowed us to scale back on the capital plan funding. The guidelines that we were given was 300. Scaling this back
Yeah.
allowed us to sort of just use the 200 of the 300, allowing the FinCom to decide what to do with that added with the extra
But the other piece though is
guidelines.
the scope of that is still a little preliminary, where we're gonna get more of a full
Yes.
quote.
Yes, and they're
more-
working on
more
that right
the
now.
town meeting.
Right, they are working on that right now. What this money will include, though, is a full access database that helps us to link between future software that we may have, between what we have right now, so
For
that,
for the inventory, not for the actual
Right.
scanning.
correct. We're not scanning documents right now, we're inventorying and checking, what do we have, what do we need, what can we get rid of, so we're not lugging 140 years of records back into the new town hall. So that
Yeah,
was
but
part
that's,
of it
I
as
mean,
well.
that's kind of where I'm going, is that if you didn't do anything other than the simplest of store metadata on it, you know, in fact, what you have in your filing, but just send everything out and digitize everything, and that was all you did, I'm curious what the cost of that would be.
$150,000 to
No,
take.
no, that's
all
also the
records.
software to store it.
No,
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 it's
no,
not.
that's
Software's
just
another piece.
digitizing all the records. We had 2 vendors come in,
Okay.
look at all the rooms filled with drawers and files and maps.
And just to
And
put
they-
it.
So
So
150 to
150
digitize, plus
just
X
for
amount,
scanning.
like, we don't know what the whole software system is. It's probably the same type of magnitude.
When you say digitized,
Plus-
is that optical character recognition or?
No,
just-
PDF, straight PDF.
Oh, so this, so we
Just
got a
straight,
big, we got a big
right?
story.
I mean, it's not, it's, you're then gonna key in your information
They
about
would
it, the
do
metadata
that,
around it.
yes.
But the software isn't gonna read that and understand.
Okay, sorry, so it's terabytes.
Yeah, it's images, you're gonna put images on there.
But
But it's
our-
software to sell.
our hope is that by identifying, inventorying what we have and categorizing everything, that rather than going in and spending $150,000 to scan what's there, we minimize the amount of documents that need to be retained and then produced if they're requested, but also either be scanned. So if, let's assume that 3 different departments between CONSCOM, Board of Health, and Inspectional Services, let's assume that they all have their own set of plans for 3 Kinsman Lane. Rather than digitize all 3 sets of the maps for each one of those departments, we digitize 1 set of maps and we make it electronically accessible by the database for all of those land use departments to be able to access that information either in their office or within the data, storage
Yeah.
on the other side of the business.
And that's a subsequent piece, what the 45 is just, and
Identify, inventory, index, access database, give us a roadmap, tell us how to make this work, but also it will help to mitigate any unnecessary movement of duplicate records from the
Good.
temp
Your
offices
purge.
to the new one.
you'll purge what you,
Right.
every,
Right.
Okay, good. Before we get to the citizen petition ones, just so I don't get out of order, we have Article 31st, the planning board bylaw change that is removing the restriction that you can't serve for more than 3 consecutive terms on the planning board. Do we need to pending this, Lou, or can we vote it?
I think we can, I haven't talked to the chair about this, this didn't come up at all here, right?
No, because it's
It's
not
not
a
a planning board,
zoning,
it's not a.
right, it's not a zoning article, just general bylaw.
I don't see a problem with,
I don't see a problem with term
Because
limits, term
if-
limits aren't a bad thing.
but on the other hand, if you're grumpy about who's on the planning board, well, you run.
Right. But also, my understanding from our last meeting was that if you're on for 3 consecutive terms and you're off for a year, then you can get back
You
on.
can get right
That's
back
right.
on.
That's right.
So I
where did this come from? Was this from the Board of Selectmen who requested this, or, I mean, it had to have been somehow, but where did it come, right?
It's the board.
Okay.
Has to
so,
I can address that a bit.
Yeah.
I was somewhat instrumental in that. I talked to a guy in town that has written probably half of our bylaws, Holger Luther, and he said this came about in about 1978 because of a squabble that existed between a town citizen and the planning board, and somehow through all that process, they instituted term limits for the planning board. And he said we ought to get rid of it, it's the only group in town, the only elected board in town that's got term limits, and when you think about the fact that there are several boards, this being one of them, that institutional memory is really pretty critical. It takes a fair amount of time for somebody to really understand what the planning board's all about and what they should be doing. And that's some of the reasoning that was behind it.
And you can have contested election.
Pardon?
You can have contested election.
That's right. Yeah.
so I will move for positive action that the town vote to amend Article 7, Section 2-37 of the town's general bylaws to strike the term limits.
Is there a second to move?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Dana must be abstaining because he stepped out. Okay, let's see, that brings us to, there's,
It brings us to doobie-doobie-doo. Did you see what's next?
That's what I was like.
no,
Sorry.
No pun intended.
We had two
Marijuana's
citizens
next,
petitions. Karen,
we did take care of that
Yeah, I heard.
one already, sorry, Jay.
Yeah, no, I was just, you're saying it, I'm looking down.
I'm flipping through to the citizens petition, and I know Joel Harrington is here, he was the ban on plastic bags person, and we had questions, because I think last meeting we,
this went to vote,
Yeah.
we voted no action. I'm asking that we revisit, take a quick look at it again, because there's some additional information that has come to the table with regards to a bit more detail on implementation, definition of retail establishments, enforcement, with regards to potentials for scaling of fines. Joel sent around some
37.
examples. I flipped around to the committee members with regards to some examples of some other towns that are doing this, quite a few actually. You know, and how they're writing their bylaws to do that. So with that, Joel, if you want to make a few comments.
Yeah, it seems like you didn't get the full article that was put
well, I
together.
think we did, but it was like back the end of January. There was I think I
Right.
sent everybody the full petition with all the
I think
signatures, and it had all the, okay, it's retail establishments, so it wouldn't apply to the Strawberry Festival vendors.
Correct.
Or even Topsfield Fair
No.
vendors, because they're not retail
The idea is
establishments.
to reduce the amount of trash going around in the town. I see these things up in the trees all the time, and not gonna wipe it out, but you're gonna reduce it a lot by having the establishments that are here not just throw them out, hand them out left and right. And they're a nuisance, they can't be recycled, and it just degrades the town. There's no financial negatives to the town, there's zero cost. I can ask for 2% more over that, but there's no cost. And there's only upside, I think, because it makes cleaning up the parks and recreation, the parks and cemeteries a little easier. It makes the road, cleaning the drains a little easier, because you don't have plastic bags stuck down there. So I only see positives for the town.
So I don't think anybody was necessarily.
No, that wasn't, it was
That
more
wasn't
the
the
question
issue,
of how it's written. Like for-
is the way the article was written.
Like, for example, if retail establishments is a defined term, I would think it would have a capital R and a capital E in the definition of it, and this is all lowercase, so it
And
just.
there was a separate sheet that went around that explains a lot of that, but it didn't make its way
It's
into
not
the
in the
actual
language
language.
that we have to
Right,
look
I
at.
had
That's
an
the drown.
attachment, well, there was an attachment, but having an attachment to a citizen petition doesn't make a citizen petition on a warrant, so
That's the challenge.
that was the issue.
Right.
So I could only take what was literally signed by all the petitioners
Aha, not the
as the
explanation.
legal
Not all the
article,
penalties and
even though there was an attachment.
Okay.
The attachment doesn't become a part of the warrant article because there's no reference to it in the initial body of the warrant article.
The attached, what are you talking about,
There's a
attachment?
2-page attachment that came with the citizen petition, but that is just, I consider
Well,
that
that
to be
couldn't be fit
information.
in the box on the petition.
There's no reference in the citizen petition that allows me to incorporate this into the article.
That was
Merely-
included in every,
This is the citizen
signature.
petition, not this, so, and it's not my decision, it's what the state statute
So what would
states.
need to happen is on that, on
There
your
would need
left-hand
to
page,
be
you have
perhaps
to
an
just
amendment,
so
there
say,
would be an
please see
amendment.
appendix, whatever amendment.
I could
or-
ask town council how this could be treated.
Yeah,
You have to do it in the motion.
So that was,
But
that's
if
the
you know the
challenge,
answer,
trying to figure out how to
let's ask
implement
town
it.
Well, no, I just told you the answer, but if you
Right.
want me to investigate it, I'm not an attorney,
Well,
and I will need to check.
It
Can
would
I
have to
just,
be in a written motion, I mean.
An amendment on the floor.
Yes, that's
Can I just mention that when those signature sheets went out, that was attached to it?
Yeah, but we're not, we
It's a
agree with it,
legality,
it's a
it's
state
not-
law
Alright.
on how it works.
Right.
It's what we're hearing.
Yeah.
So it's-
Conceptually, it's not an issue, it was more having those details included so that we could actually, so people could actually see what they're voting on.
Yeah, because when people get the warrant, they see this.
They're not gonna see that
Right.
sheet.
Donna Rich mentioned to me that what would go in there is a summary, and then in the back of the warrant, there would be the details. That's how, and then
That's
that
not
the
reflected
town
in the
council
warrant.
would be reviewing how it's written.
Right, right.
Kelly has to legally put exactly what's written on the citizen petition into the warrant. She can't change it at all, it has to be
Like word
word,
like
copy
word for
paste.
word on the petition part, not any attachments. You might be able to,
That's not
Take
how
the
it's
atta-
explained to me.
it's probably was inadvertent, it was unfortunate, but what you would need to do is make a written motion on the floor to basically amend the motion to include the words that it had in the attachment.
It would be
Doesn't line up with what it was explained how it was gonna work. I submitted the 2 or 3 page, are you talking about the 2 or 3 page
Yeah.
Yeah.
description? That's
Right,
what I
the
submitted.
description, yeah.
And then I was asked to make a small summary of it on the petition so that it could fit in a little box above where the signatures go. So that's what I did.
No, I,
And
So-
How are some of these other citizens petitions with so much more language? Kind of-
frequently they might say as referred to in attachment A or attachment B.
They would have to incorporate it by reference.
Conceptually, what you're saying is that
Right.
that single page has to stand on its own unless it refers to anything else.
Correct.
Conceptually.
Correct. And it's
Right, wrong,
based
or
on
indifferent.
statute.
There's no
Yeah,
referral.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, is the possibility, I mean, ultimately, we either have to support it the way it's written now,
Right.
or we have to say no action.
And
But
that
can
was
we-
our whole issue.
Yeah, can we stand up and say, we say no action because the way it's written is not sufficient? But if you had then a citizen petition, if you offered an amendment on the floor, saying we talked with somebody and this is what we'd recommend in the change, that would then end up going to be what the town could vote on.
Which would be a really long amendment. And you'd almost have to have sheets for
Everybody would almost have to write it
distribution.
in
Yeah.
ahead
We
of
would
time.
just have to hand it out.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
kind of-
Or improve it and redo it next year, which is just another year delay.
Well, it's true.
Or
It's not-
have
it's
people
not
accept
perfect.
what a retail establishment means and,
That the bylaws
They
will
have
be written
penalties
in
and
and.
whatever.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that's
before-
true.
That's just there's a lot of good details in there that are important.
yeah.
That's, I certainly don't agree with.
Yeah, it's not a crazy thing. I mean, a lot of the bags aren't from Topsfield retail establishments, but, you know, you do what you can.
If we were to put that in our motion, that the language would be attached, probably not outside the scope of the article, but don't really have that, or taking the action related there too language, so I'm not really sure that we
can
could do anything.
Do that, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Citizen petitions are tricky things. It seems to me we did that. There was the trash bylaw, Dick, that added fines for littering. The first year, it wasn't perfect. petition, and it came back the next year with perfected language. So there's precedent for doing it. Yeah, you wait a year.
Is there a way we can do it so that we don't have to wait a year? Question.
You would have to amend on the town floor,
Amendment written amendment on the floor.
and then hand it out, hand out to everybody.
That would be the best one.
Yeah.
Make it, yeah.
The
Print out copies.
amendment being the original article, which I thought was the article.
Well, you need to refer, you need to refer to the attachment in the small box summary you wrote.
The attachment.
Correct.
Okay.
We're not lawyers.
Okay, I know.
Lou's a lawyer.
Well, Louis,
If that little box referred to your 3 pages as something, and they were labeled as something and it tied, I'm assuming that then we'd be fine.
Yeah.
Because this could then say, as referred to in whatever, but right now, there's nothing legally linking your attachment to the little box of
Okay,
signatures.
just to be clear, what was explained to me when I put this together was,
You
I
said it.
presented the 2-page article, and I
And
was
they
told,
said-
please make a summary of that and put it in the box.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was told the article would go as an attachment in the back of the warrant, and then we would be voting on the summary.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
there's 2 different actions. The first action says to eliminate the use of the plastic bags, but then your attachment talks about a change in the general bylaw. So that would not be within the scope of the citizen petition. So even though it is technically a summary,
Mhm.
legally, we can't attach this to the warrant because the statute doesn't allow that. Because
I was
there's no
also-
reference from this to this. 2 different
So-
actions.
So I mean, I think the best path at this point is
Either wait a year and resubmit it, and I don't know who you asked to get that done the right way, but that's one thing. And the second one is amending it on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened before, there's been plenty of things that have happened over the course of town meeting where we voted no action and then someone stands up and then moves.
The issue would be, the town trusting what is presented and having time to assess and evaluate it, and the ability to be successful at that. You know, I mean, you're gonna have more people who are skeptical because something's changing.
At the very least, having the article, even if it ends up no action, has raised awareness. We now know we can't put our plastic bags in the recycle bins, which is probably one source of them blowing. And at least people would be aware more of the issue.
Otherwise, if we went positive action as it's written right now, that's not gonna
It's
affect the changes,
unenforceable.
that's not gonna
Doesn't-
affect the changes in the
It's
pretty vague.
bylaw.
Doesn't do what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might wanna take your language, put a motion together, and then, prepare it in writing, then talk to the moderator to make sure you can be within the scope of this article, because ultimately it's gonna be his call whether or not your town meeting can even consider it. So maybe you wanna talk to him first.
He's, what's his email, townmoderator@topsfield-ma.gov.
It's on the
Forget if
website.
there's a dash or,
What's up?
It's on the website.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, I appreciate what you were trying to do, there's no question, we're all
Sounds like.
We're all,
in sympathy
Yeah.
with it, it's just how to
and
do
we
it.
also understand the frustration of the process, but it's sort of past.
But you're not the first one, like I said, the one to add littering fines had to go through an iteration and a perfecting process in order to actually be something that you could vote that was enforceable. Okay, so we're not reconsidering that one because we can't.
So, and I think the last version I had said voted no action, no.
It said recommended
Pending further review, so that would change to voted,
no action.
Do we
recommended no
wanna
action.
put a motion on the floor? Right?
Yeah,
I
we-
move no,
we-
action.
No, we did vote no action.
We did vote.
We did vote no
Okay.
action.
Yeah, well, And it was simply because of an implementation change.
Sorry, Joe.
Thank you, Joel.
Sure.
There was no action. Okay, 39, the Charter Revision Committee.
Yeah, I'll address that. I'm
Okay.
somewhat responsible for that. You heard me refer to my friend Holger Luther a little while ago. I talked to him about that, and he was on the Town Management Study Committee of 2011. And out of that came the recommendation that we should have a strong town administrator with the authority to do her job properly, in my opinion. And so we hurriedly put that thing together, and that's what you see in front of you. It's a suggestion that we reappoint we haven't even talked about the name yet, but it would be another management study committee, town management study committee, that would come back to us in 10 months. It does make some sense, in my opinion, to review these kinds of issues periodically, and it's been since 2011 that was done.
I thought it was 2007.
No.
Yeah.
It was much before
Well,
that.
Town administrator.
They did another one.
Okay.
Government
Yeah.
Review Committee was more
Okay.
recently.
I'm wrong about the date.
Well,
The Government
But
Review
anyway,
Committee
it's
was
been long
later.
enough that it needs to be reviewed again, it seems to me. And that's what this is all about.
We've had a town administrator since the 2007 committee.
That's right.
Yep.
But then
Well, there's been
But
two
there was
committees.
another-
That's right, there were two committees.
So it depends on which one you're talking about. Okay, thank you, Boyd. Louis?
Now, so my understanding is that the committee will be essentially studying the organization of town government with an eye toward getting a strong town administrative position, at least considering that. And my understanding also is to be flexible in the method of how they would make a recommendation and not necessarily go through the very onerous charter, home rule charter provisions of the general laws, which would be very, very time-consuming and inflexible. So that's my understanding, and at this point, I think it would be pretty much anything would be on the table for them, this commission to consider with regard to the organization of town government. That's my understanding.
Okay.
There's no financial impact, so this isn't costing us another paid study.
No, it's a volunteer committee.
They could come up with do nothing, or they could come up with do something.
In any number of areas.
I mean, there's not a particular number of people for the committee. I think there might be some flexibility there. Because my understanding is it's not necessarily a chapter, a home rule charter commission committee, that they might not need to go through that statute, might have some flexibility there with who they can appoint, or the number of people they can appoint. But generally, I think it's to start the discussion on town organization, which probably should happen periodically.
Okay, so do you have a motion?
So I move for positive action on the appointment of the, I move positive action on Article 39 for the appointment of a charter revision committee to consider the form of town government, to make recommendations to the board of selectmen regarding all aspects of town government, and including a strong town administrator to coordinate the activities of town departments.
Second.
And that's for the selectmen to do the appointing. It's not a town meeting doing the appointing, just directing the selectmen. Okay. Further discussion?
Yeah, how will the selectmen fill this committee? Will it be one per selectman or a vote? Or-
The way they choose any committee,
Yeah,
it's up to them.
okay.
There's no required membership or number.
Right.
And any result of this would then have to come back both to the board of selectmen and then to a
And
town
town
meeting
meeting.
afterwards. This is really just a proposal.
I know,
This
I
comes out of
understand
it,
Right, I'm just, but
Yeah.
So the
the
process,
selection of that committee,
either process requires
That's
town
the
meeting
way-
approval. The less onerous process is basically a home rule petition for a special act, which if, you know, we have to come back to town meeting approval before it goes to the legislature. And I'm hoping that that's the process that this committee eventually recommends.
What's the alternative?
I'm just saying.
So there's basically the home rule
Yeah.
procedures under the state constitution and a special, general law, which is the other one.
And general law is more difficult to implement and to remove.
No, it's just that there's this whole really complicated procedure about how to form the commission, how to have hearings, how to go back to town meeting, and especially how to revise the charter once it's adopted. And it always needs to be revision.
But the question is, can selectmen just study this themselves without putting a charter?
Without
Research
having
it?
this
Yeah,
article,
without
yeah,
having
the
to
selectmen
Look at this,
would-
go to this,
I
this,
think
this,
you
we do
could-
compare it this
You
way.
could
They could
decide
do-
that you
Yeah.
want to study it, or
Right,
gather a group of people to do it. This is just
yeah. so I-
telling you to do it.
This would have the force of town meeting. It's just
Right,
a stronger
okay,
directive.
yeah. All right, well, okay, no more discussion, I'm,
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstains? And we are down to 6. Everybody's favorite, free cash to offset the tax rate.
Pretty far enough along to know.
What are we working with?
Number?
Well, I think
yeah, so,
we don't have to come to a precise exactly at the levy limit. We can go a little under, and because we did add some money.
okay. So I haven't kept that one, how much are we voting at, 4,000, 5,000, right?
Oh,
But we also,
yeah.
Yeah. And then, so at 305,
does that include the,
With the overhead.
Masco?
oh, yeah, so I took out the,
You took Masco.
I took Masco out, had it in the Che factor for 300,000, okay. No.
And
But I
took out
didn't,
the snow and ice.
I did not take out snow and ice. So we took out snow and ice,
We got all the overviews in there?
yeah. No, I think I did. So we take out snow and ice, that's another 100,000, so. Okay. So then I'm sort of sitting at 205 plus some other fund, 210.
And what?
Without, let's say, I haven't put in the extras we voted with the library and stuff, but we're at
Which,
205, 381, taking out the snow and ice deficit. And adding 300,000 to the OPEB.
But the 300,000 for the OPEB is coming directly out of free cash, not to reduce the tax levy.
Okay, sure. Okay,
Yeah,
all right, so,
yeah, basically you have to change.
okay, so gotcha, so I'm gonna, okay, so I know what I'll do, all right, here we go. Got it. Here we go, ready?
I would guess that with being,
Okay,
taking out Masco, taking out the snow and ice deficit, we're like $10,000 over the levy limit.
I got one, let's see something, I got 158. What are you at?
158 over,
158,000.
is that including Masco's, the capital?
I just took the Masco out, the
And did you
120,
take the snow and ice out?
snow and ice is out.
Well, then there was something funky on Mike's version 2.7.
No, he didn't put that in the reading.
They lined up before they came in the door time.
yeah,
Yeah.
so wait, I added 300 to, I added 300 to the OPEB out of free cash.
Well, you added,
Added
it
200.
was in at 100 and you added 200.
Yeah, put 300, yeah, put 300.
So
out of
free cash for a particular purpose goes up to 811,000, right?
Yeah, so it's.
It is. So, it was at 811, then we took the 148 out, so it should be at 663, 250.
Right, yeah, that's what I have to. Okay. I'm at 663, 250 as well,
So that's the free cash
for a
purposes.
particular
Mhm.
purpose.
Yeah. And then,
I'm at 203, 683 for free cash to reduce the tax levy.
oh, so
Oh.
that's a plug that you put in, so what
That's
is
the
yours?
plug.
Oh, but I think now it's time to release the minimum free cash position.
Okay, right, if we release the minimum free cash, but how much do you wanna release?
Well, take the two, take 50. You took the snow and ice out too.
If I took the snow and ice out, if I took the snow and ice out. Snow and ice. Okay, I'm gonna take out the snow and ice right now, boom,
Yep.
205. 205, 381.
Then you wanna add 5071 in the appropriations at the top, hold on, to be released.
Okay, 5071, 5,000.
$5,071.
Right, okay, 5071.
And you certainly can change the minimum free cash position to 1.2 million.
Oh, yeah, right, no, whatever,
Because-
yeah, you just
yeah.
tell me the number you
Well,
want. Yeah, so we can
Change
do-
it to 1.2 million because we happily said that
Sure,
extra money for OPEB was an appropriate use of free cash.
right.
So that brings us down to 10,000-ish over the
Okay,
levy
yeah.
limit.
I'm at 20,000, another zero. Okay. Yeah, so now we're at 10,000, jump to the levy limit. Very good, PhD work.
I didn't get minus instead of plus.
Yeah.
Okay,
Gotcha.
so,
So when you say the 1.2, that's the amount you wanna set aside?
well, for right now.
Yeah, the minimum free
Before-
cash position
before
is
we
at
go
1.2.
crazy.
Okay,
All right,
and you're still at 10,000 over right now?
yeah. So,
Oh, and what do you have at your,
I have 5381 and I haven't added in year 5.
what do you have at the, what do you have plugged for the, reduced?
John,
For the what?
I'm cold.
The free cash.
and you wanna go
reduced
home
levy
and go to
limit.
sleep.
Oh, 403, 683.
4 hours, well, 3 hours and
403
53
what?
minutes of sleep
683.
tonight.
Right now.
And I could,
Right
I don't
now.
have that. Oh, it's
Yeah, you
at
sleep on the
10,000.
plane.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I, so I come up
Yeah,
with, yeah.
so now we're 10,000 in
We're,
the,
we're in the ballpark.
we're in the ballpark.
Yeah,
Doesn't work
Okay.
anymore.
so,
That's pretty good, Karen, you did that in your head, that was pretty good. Well, at this time of night.
yeah. So, our traditional minimum is 750,000.
Right.
I think we were predicting that in fiscal '20, we'd have a debt bump of an extra couple 100,000 maybe, because the schools will be fully done, out to bond, whatever. And if we wanna take the top off of that
Okay.
and try to hold that level, we gotta save aside $200,000 now.
Uh-huh.
If we want to apply that same principle, since we have the free cash this year. You know, the debt bump was
Right, so we have 400.
55,000.
Okay.
So if you take 55,000 to take the top off the debt bump, and you take, you gotta take another 10,000 at least to get below the levy limit.
Show 65,000. 70,000. Does that feel like the price is right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then,
You gotta give a buffer. You don't wanna find yourself being all that stuff.
Were you
Yeah.
putting that in your plug, the plug that you have to reduce? I don't have that system.
yeah,
So-
the
You're
free
talking free
cash,
cash
yeah,
flow.
basically
Calculate.
you'd bump free cash to reduce the tax
That's it,
levy up
right.
by
Yeah.
$75,000.
Yeah, so I've got that at 75,000 now, and now,
Right.
so now we're negative 60,000, 59.
61, 659.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
what's the ending cash, how much free cash will we have going into next year?
So,
That would be
our minimum free cash.
1.125 million.
Yeah,
I have 1.138.
I have 1.13 also.
341.
Whatever.
Yeah,
You're doing it in your head.
There you
Pretty
be off.
impressive.
$7,000.
At 12:15, 12:10 in the morning.
Yeah.
And what levers do we have to get that? I don't think we do, but.
well, I mean, we can take the free cash down enough and just drop the tax levy down for next year.
No, I know, but.
But you've then applied way more free cash than you usually do to the operating
I
budget.
totally agree, it's just giving money back to
It's a
the,
consistency thing.
right,
Yeah.
it's just giving money back to the
And-
taxpayers next
and-
year.
And
That's all.
not knowing exactly what the debt bump is for next year, but
That's all I'm saying. It would be nice to,
have that tucked aside in our pocket
Yeah.
already. as
Right.
free cash.
right, my point is, how do we have, I'd like to see that free cash number a little higher if possible, so we could apply that to future debt purposes, whether it's principal or whether it's
Well,
in future years.
I mean,
as
so the way you're
opposed to
doing it
just
now is
refinancing.
you're using right, the way we're using it now is we're opening up levers. Yeah. Okay. Not levers, sorry. So that's what. No, you're right, we can't use it, never mind, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, the minimum free cash position ordinarily would be 700 to 750.
Right, so we've built it up a
And we're
lot.
sitting at 250,000 above
Right.
that.
But philosophically,
more.
it's not our money,
Right,
right?
well,
Yeah.
it's all our money.
It's all our money, but philosophically
We're
though,
here.
I mean, philosophically, it's money that we collected from the taxpayers,
Right.
and should we think about getting it back to them?
So with 478, 683, free cash to reduce the levy limit, that leaves us under levy capacity by 65,000, plus we have a built-in $150,000 buffer.
Right?
150,000.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
bumped it up.
Oh, you're worried?
But
Yeah. Okay.
Stuck that one in, so.
Yeah. Yeah, just knowing that the debt service is going to bump up one more year. And we told people, to the extent we could,
We flattened it out.
we'd take
right,
things
that's right.
off. And last year, we
Okay.
didn't put as much in stabilization as we had been.
Yeah.
And, you know, we did what we could last year. This
Right.
year, we have more free cash.
Right.
The whole question of how to rebate Donnie Bristle,
Well, that's coming
we need to know when the Donnie Bristle money comes in.
And we don't know the exact amount yet, right?
Well,
in.
400.
400,000.
400. Well, I mean, the cover letter that I got, that we got, said up to 400. And I asked Heidi Gaffney, the conservation administrator, what, that concerns me.
Right.
She said, oh, they always do that on the cover letter. But I also looked at the grant application that we gotta fill out and the contract that we gotta sign, and they specifically refer 400,000 only, that's it. So that's what it's gonna be, I'm sure.
Conservatively, we should wait till next year.
well,
Under four.
if at town meeting, we know that the money's in hand,
Right.
that it's going to get certified, it's gonna go to the general fund before June 30th, it's gonna get certified as free cash in the fall.
Okay. Oh, that's true.
Well, I don't have a problem taking free cash down below
Mhm.
what we typically do, because
Right, it's
we
gonna
know
Be
it's
right
gonna
back
come
up.
back.
Yeah.
But we-
Otherwise-
As long as we know it's really coming in and really know when.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As of right now, we should assume it's not, but know that, okay,
Yeah.
here's what we'll do if it does come in.
yeah.
I don't,
Yeah, so what do you want for your minimum free cash position?
I think
You've
we
been doing this a
gotta,
long time, so.
yeah, I think knowing that we have a debt bump next year with the elementary school,
We have to keep
On
it
a
a
little
higher than
project.
ideal.
yeah, because we're trying to feather,
Okay.
you know, if you apply it this
And-
year,
and-
next year, it's gonna be.
But also, we also, next year OPEB contribution might be $400,000,
Yeah,
or $350.
yeah.
and we don't have, necessarily won't have this cash.
That's my
There'll be
point.
more
Yeah.
pressure on the cash, free
Yeah.
cash.
So the number is?
Oh,
We're
we're on 1-1,
Where did you
right?
get,
Where-
you got
the last number we have is 478,683.
Yeah, 478.
free cash to reduce the tax levy?
Yeah, and that leaves us with a position of 478,683, right? We're agreeing on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to point at you.
That's all right, that's all right. Used to.
And that leaves us at 1.1.
2.5,
125.
yeah, I'm gonna plug,
What do you have, that one?
1.125.
Remaining free
I should
cash.
probably go.
Oh,